Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Wealth as a Team Sport. It's been a minute since we've had a discussion. I have with me today Susie Lonsberry, so we're going to be very excited to get to chat with her. And just to kind of reset people, this is a podcast that I enjoy doing because I really feel like building wealth is a whole person concept. And Susie and I were just chatting. I think money in and of itself isn't that important. What's really cool are the choices that it gives us and the things it lets us do in our lives. And so in my large framework, I think you need protection because you're no good to anybody if something happens to you. And so if you're trying to create a legacy, protect your family, take care of a charity, you have to have that protection piece in place. Yeah, everybody knows you got to have savings. What is it, like 3 to 6 months? Because savings is what lets you not get backed into a corner. Because if you don't have savings, you're either going to make a bad decision, you're going to be forced to make a decision you don't want to make, or your worst case, you're going to go to a credit card. So you got to have that savings piece. And then growth. Growth is the fun part. Growth is money's like energy. So you're working and you're storing energy, you're putting it to grow, and then you let your money start to work for you. And that's where you have your compounding interest and you do things over the long term, so that at some point your money has worked for you and then you get to do all the cool things that you want to do. So part of what I like to do with these podcasts is I find people that I think are super interesting and doing very cool things. So with that being said, before I go on further, welcome, Susie. So glad to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Tara. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate a chance to learn from you and maybe help share some things that I've learned with your audience.
It's going to be excellent. So one of the things that's really interesting is I just realized we are both going to be graduates of the same book writing process. And remind me again, Susie, is it HPS or are you doing the writing with AJ?
I'm doing the writing with AJ. So AJ Harper is a brilliant lady, does a course and a lot of things that you can work on your writing skills. And so with her, I'm able to meet people like you or meet other people from all different walks of life as I step out on this new venture to learn how to write a book while I write a book.
What I really enjoyed with AJ is she was like, you military people. She's like, you guys are just getting to the point. And she really had to teach me. She's like, take a breath, tell a story. Hi, how are you doing today? Not, here's the list of what we're going to do.
Yes, we're so driven and I think for me, the big thing is giving myself space to really think and not edit myself so quickly.
Right.
I think it's important, and I know I'll get to editing. I'm still in the rough draft portion right now, but knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect right away. This email doesn't have to be sent right away. I can just say the stupid things that need to come out of my head and I have time to fix them later. And so it's been a transition to really get to that. And I also wanted to share, in your intro, you're talking about like the security and planning ahead for some financials. Freedom gives you that freedom to get out and do different things. I just retired from the Air Force after almost 21 years back in November. And that was a whole other adventure. And it was a great chapter of my life. But something that my husband and I wanted to do is be able to retire when I was still relatively young. And now I can start this whole other chapter. I can spend the day trying to figure out how to write a book, and I don't feel pressured to go get a job right away, or that I'm not going to be able to pay for my kids' football pads, because we planned ahead and we knew, hey, this batch of 20 years is one thing, and we went all in and it was a great adventure, but we also saved enough and planned ahead so that this transition, which can be so hard for veterans to make, I feel like we gave ourselves a little more wiggle room so that I can figure out what I want to do next and take some time. And so I just want to reiterate, as someone who's starting chapter 2, giving myself the cushion and space to do that has taken a lot of pressure off what's kind of a stressful transition.
Oh, I love that. And I was looking at your bio, and one of the things you talk about is planning. And so I was going to share a short experience that I've had, and I'm hoping it'll spark a cool story from your end as well.
Yeah.
So like one of the things with financial planning is it's really kind of a very unsexy thing to do. It's like saving, it's like having a good habit, like going to the gym. It's kind of doing actions and putting in the reps, knowing that at some point some of it is, it will pay off. Some of it in the protection phase, you hope you never need to use it. So it's all those kind of things. And I just recently had one of my clients that I started with years ago when she was just in her 20s. And we were talking, I remember talking about it. She's like, well, I'm single. Why would I ever want to have insurance? I said, well, there's reasons. And because insurance, it can be used as a different tool for different things. Sometimes if you have a big family and not much money, you can just offset that risk if something happens to you. For me, because I'm also don't have kids, I use insurance as a tool for tax advantages. And so
Yeah.
we got her started and we did one small policy and then we did one term that was convertible so that the benefit is if anything ever happens to you medically, you can convert it to full life and it doesn't matter. They can't deny you. And she was like, oh, I don't know. I said, well, this is going to cost you less than you would spend on a weekend going out. So let's just make it a part of your plan because you have a good 401k with your job. And here we are almost, I guess about 10 years later. And she was wanting to get some new insurance and kind of move on that path. And she went for her medical and something's going on and she's not qualifying.
Oh man.
And the super good news is the policy that she started, it's now reached that stage where she makes more in the dividends than what her premiums cost. So that doesn't even, that's doing its job. It's working for her. And now she has the other policy that she's going to be able to convert. And who would have thought 10 years ago when she's in her 20s that would ever even be a thing? So it's just one of those situations where you kind of hope that's never going to happen, but sure is nice that the planning was done to make that happen. So I'm very curious if that brings any kind of a story to mind for you where you've done some planning that was kind of like, okay, guys, we're going through the motions. And then you're like, boy, I'm sure glad we did that.
Right. It's kind of that whole like plan, like hope for the best and plan for the worst.
You're right.
Yeah. I think back similar, this isn't as interesting, but for me personally, as a lieutenant, I remember like people saying like, do your TSP. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I can put a few $100 in it now until I figure out what that is later. You know what I mean? And so when you start something early, whether it's a habit or a plan, if you only need to do a little bit at a time, right? Like if you put those pennies in a jar, you start putting into that insurance plan. If you start doing that early, you only need a little bit and it can pay back huge dividends later. Like, when you're flying, you think about, okay, I'm going this way. Well, just a couple degree heading change way early on can really take you onto a different course later, and when you're flying, that's probably a bad thing. You want to be going exactly where you're going. But that same concept does still apply to like a little change can lead to a big difference later.
Well, and you're reminding me when I did my first solo and I was getting my private pilot's license, I hadn't really got to the stage where I learned to account for drift. So I was just heading to the VOR and I was in my little Cessna and I finally landed and they were like, we were getting worried about you. You were supposed to be here almost 45 minutes ago because in my little Cessna, I kept just getting blown and I'd recorrect and blow. And it was like, well, I'm glad I made it because your fuel does start to run out.
but that's sometimes how it takes us to get to our goals, right? Like we know where we're going and the wind or like problems and challenges can kind of blow us off course, but you recheck and you reset that goal and you get yourself back on track for it.
That's really cool. So one of the other things I was enjoying while we were chatting before is we're both worked with AJ Harper when we're writing our books. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really learned, probably one of my biggest takeaways from AJ and HPS and Top 3 was it's not about you. Get out of your own way. It's about how are you being of service to your reader, or further, like if you're speaking, it's not about you and how do I look and is my hair just right? Like no one cares. It's are you saying something that is interesting for them? And so how are you being of service to other people? And that's always been very interesting to me as far as creating a financial business is I didn't ever want it. I didn't like it when I was younger. And I always felt like maybe I was talking to a used car salesman. I wanted someone to give me enough education and room to kind of think about it and go, okay, that makes sense. That can apply for me. I'm kind of interested if you would be willing to share. I know you're in the early stages of writing your book, but what kind of shifts or have you been going through as you're thinking about, instead of just like being the boss, telling people what to do, how are you going to be of service to the reader?
That's been definitely, yeah, at the forefront of my mind, based on AJ's teaching. But I think my leadership style has been pretty empathetic in this way, but it's different, right? Because when I'm a squadron commander, this is my audience, this is my mission. So many other boundaries are set that all I have to do is go, okay, are these young airmen that are fresh out of basic training? Are these crusty old majors who are just trying to get to the airlines? And I'm used to adapting a message for my whoever's receiving it, but it's usually like in person, or at least a closer thing, maybe an email, where to me I'm like, oh, I got that down. But then to go and shift into writing a book, and it's I didn't really approach it that way initially. I thought, okay, now it's just my turn to just say whatever I want to say, and someone's going to read it and they're going to love it. But she's like, no, 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 you have to figure out who your reader is. And something that I thought, oh, well, leaders. Oh, wow, that's like so broad, right? And I'm like, okay, leaders with this problem or leaders with this issue. And I spent like all summer just really trying to hammer down, like, who am I trying to help? Because if I'm trying to help everybody, that's beautiful, right? World peace, but it's not going to really hit home. And we've all read those books where, as AJ says, you feel like you see yourself in the pages, and that's what connects you to it. And I just never really thought about that being able to work in a book. It had always kind of snuck in on me. I know which books I love. And so when I go back now, understanding her methodology, I'm like, she's right. They did address the same things I have. And other books that maybe I couldn't finish because I'm like, this is cool, but it's just not for me. And so coming at this now as an aspiring author and looking at a bigger project, and something where you don't get that feedback, you don't feel the energy of the room, you don't see the people falling asleep or laughing at your jokes to try and get you going. Oh man, it's daunting. But for now, again, since I'm in the rough draft phase, I'm just trying to be myself and just get it all on paper, knowing that she'll support me as I go through my edits, and constantly ask myself, it's like, not just at the beginning, who is this for, but all the way through every pass as I edit, so that when I get this book done, it really serves someone. Because my goal with this is to help people to really find a new way to serve now that I'm no longer in the military, and find a way to take these lessons and adventures, entertain, inspire, but really give people some things that they can take and help their team get stronger and work better together. But if I'm only telling the stories that make me feel good and I don't think about, is this actually helpful, or is this just make me look cool or funny or even self-deprecating? Like it needs to not be about me. It needs to be about that reader. And so for me, after much back and forth, I've honed in now. My ideal reader are those leaders who want to develop people. They're really focused on the people part, but they feel like the mission side is always pulling them away. They feel like they have to choose between developing people and getting good results in their mission.
Yeah.
And I want to show them they don't have to choose, that through better collaborative planning, you really can have both. You don't have to decide. It's just being okay with this spectrum kind of shifting. There's no silver bullet, there's no perfect answer, but it's always just keeping those people in the front of your mind. And I've got a lot of things I want to share in the book that I think will help.
I love that. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to put me on your list because I definitely want to read that book. You remind me, I was just down in my reserve duty last week in Colombia, and we were hiking up Monserrate for our PT. I was like, this is good PT, kind of like the incline in Colorado. And I was talking with one of the young officers, and he was just like, I just want to get to the place where I can just finally be in charge, and I can just say, I know what we need to do, and I just want to be able to say it. And it was really interesting because I remember feeling like that, especially when I was a lieutenant. Like I had to learn to phrase everything in the form of a question because people were like, lieutenant, whatever. But the thing I can say is, as I've gone up in rank, that doesn't actually change. And the people that stay curious and stay engaged and don't ever assume that you know the answer, those are the best leaders that I've ever worked with. And I have to remind myself of that as a lesson I learned early is I may think I know the answer. It is way more powerful to ask because someone out there probably has a better idea than you. In worst
Yes.
case, if no one does, you hold all the cards because you're the boss. But
Right.
but it's really cool because a lot of times you're like, "Oh, yeah, let's do that. That's even better than what I was thinking." And
Exactly.
so, it was really
I
fun with
agree.
this young captain to I said, "Well, here's the thing is, eh, the just having rank doesn't really help. It helps while you're in the room because everyone has to be nice to you, but what
Mhm.
matters is when you leave the room and you're not there pressing on people, are they still gonna be doing what you've asked?" And that
Right.
comes with respect, and respect is earned because you give it, not because you demand it.
Exactly. But
And
I think you're spot on. Like, to me, when you're a young officer, young leader, you think, man, if I was just in charge, then I know what to do. I could fix this. Well, from your perspective, from your vantage point, right? And so I've definitely in command position had those captains that I know think they could run the squadron better than me. And I just bless your heart, because it's for those of us who are parents, there's things you protect your kids from. They don't need to know everything that's going on, right? And so I'm making my decisions based on all the things I know. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, just in a way that my perspective's different. But it's so critical that we're asking for those inputs and that we're creating an environment where people feel safe to speak up so that you can go, oh, wow, I didn't think about it from that perspective. And that brings a new light on it. Or, especially as our airmen are getting younger and those of us in the elder years are not
you
maybe
think
as
we're just getting
technologically
older.
savvy, right? Like, I don't know the TikTok, right? Like, that's a silly example, but there's people that are going to bring different perspectives and ideas that I just hadn't thought of. And so it's so critical to balance that, bringing them in, making them feel open and wanting them to contribute, but not ceding your authority, right? You never want to make it a democracy, at least in the military. Maybe in some people's work environment, it is more collaborative. But for the military, I always wanted to maintain, I'm the boss, but I don't need to be bossy about it, right?
Mhm.
I can still get those inputs. I can still make it collaborative, but never let people wonder who's, running the ship, as it were.
Well, and in the military, we had such an advantage because we had a uniform on. So one of my assignments, I was teaching biology at the Air Force Academy, and I went to a teachers conference one summer, and it was so funny because one of the breakout sessions, it was literally like 45 minutes of talking about what do your students call you and how do you make them show up for class on time? And I was just like, they call
They
me
do
ma'am and
see
they show up on time. So I could skip past all of that because of what I
Yeah.
was wearing. It was obvious. But when I shifted and I was working with a mentor from the Chamber of Commerce and launching my civilian business, I realized I said, oh, right now I'm just a woman. I'm not a colonel or a pilot or any of those. I'm just a
Yeah.
woman and I'm open to anyone's views of what they think I am. So if I'm being quiet and humble, they might just think that I'm not very good at what I do. But you have to kind of learn how to be assertive and share what you're good at. You don't want to be
Mhm.
braggadocious, but you also can't be so humble that people just think you're a church mouse that's hiding in the corner. And so it's been a
Exactly.
very big adjustment to go, "Oh, I'm not wearing my resume."
Yeah, they don't know anymore. It's
Yeah,
a secret.
and so it's nice because you also don't have all those assumptions put on you right away.
Yeah.
So it's really as you go through life, it keeps getting more and more interesting about how do you build those connections? Because hopefully your goal is to lift everybody up and make something better.
Mhm.
And then you just start look you're at this stage, I'm very excited for you because it's fun because you're gonna start adding more things to your toolkit because you built this cool toolkit over the last 20 years, and now you're just getting to add extra things into that basket.
Yeah, and it's
So
like rummaging through and being like, "Does this still fit somewhere? Does this still go?" Or like you just pointed out, I'm like, "I didn't think about that." I'm used to kinda walking in a room and I mean, I still, you have to prove yourself always at some level, but you walk in now, you're just a dude. Nobody knows your experience. They don't see
right.
rank. They don't see a uniform. I'm just another mom in the PTA meeting now. And so like I actually know some things. And so it's interesting to it's a totally new adventure to not be in the Air Force and not have this kind of baseline set of expectations. It's
And
kind of scary and kind of exciting.
it is. And when you said that, it just that feeling of, well, I actually know some things. I remind myself, and I just reminded myself again, and other people do too.
Yeah.
So when I think I know all the answers, but that's one of
Mhm.
the things I found has been the most challenging part of finance, helping people because everybody comes from their own background. It's so much more emotion than it is about. It's not really just about money. It's not about return on investment. Those are the easy things. It's much more about what was the financial baggage that you were raised with? Did your family have a lot of money? Was money something that was, really tightly held? And trying to have those
Yeah.
conversations with people in a way, because at the end of the day, I want to help someone be in a better place than they were. And it's really interesting because it's hard to presume you know anything about anybody because you look at people, but you don't know. You don't know.
Right.
And to enter into those very vulnerable conversations in a way that's respectful, but helps people get where they need to go. It's interesting. So I'm going to be very interested to read your book. Susie, we're coming to the end of our time. What's the best way for people to connect with you? Because I know I'm excited about your upcoming book.
So I am on LinkedIn at Susie Lonsberry, and I think I saw someone share in there. I am a borderline Gen X millennial who's trying to build a website. So there is a SusieLonsberry.com that I'm working on. Is just a place to try and consolidate. But I am, teaching myself to do that, teaching myself about Substack, all these places. So if you find me on LinkedIn for now, please just connect. I'm loving just meeting new people from all different walks of life. And if there's something you think I can help you with, let me know. Or if you have a story you think would go in my book, I'd love to share it. I really want this to be collaborative in the adventures as well, not just my perspective. So find me on LinkedIn or at SusieLonsberry.com and let me know how to make the website better too. Right now it's like 2 pictures and a couple blips. But I'm at the beginning of this new journey and just appreciate you, Tara, giving me a chance to talk through some of my ideas and put myself out there because it's kind of a scary new thing to do. Or like, yeah, you can fly planes. I'm like, but the internet, So I just appreciate this chance, and I encourage everyone, like, try to challenge yourself in new ways and realize even if you're solo, there's other people out there that you can lean on and learn from.
That's awesome. So I think that couldn't be better said than that. So Susie, thank you for joining me today, and we had a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future. So
Thanks,
Desiree,
Tara.
you can play us out.
All done?
I am checking. So Desiree, have we ended the show?